All right, today we are digging into something that has the entire crypto world scratching its head. I'm talking about the curious case of the XRP ETF. Now, this was supposed to be a massive moment, right? The big institutional green light everyone was waiting for. But what happened next? Well, let's just say it wasn't what anyone expected. Let's get into it. And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Seriously, how does a huge breakthrough like this, with so much institutional money clearly waiting on the sidelines, not only fail to pump the price, but actually send it tumbling? It just doesn't add up. So let's break down the evidence. So to really understand why this whole thing is so weird, you have to appreciate the sheer scale of this event. This was not just another headline. On paper, this was a milestone that was supposed to completely change the game for XRP. Everyone was expecting fireworks. So let's set the scene. The date, November 13th, 2025. Canary Capital officially launches the first ever spot XRP ETF. And they didn't do it on some obscure exchange. No, this was on the NASDAQ, one of the biggest stages in the world. The ticker was XRPC. I mean, by any measure, this was a truly historic moment. But here's where it gets really interesting. Before the opening bell even rang, there were already purchase orders on the books for nearly $245 million. And let's be clear, this wasn't just a bunch of retail traders getting excited. This was institutional money, the so-called smart money, lined up and ready to go. And once the market opened, all that interest just exploded into a trading frenzy. In just the first few hours, the ETF hit a peak trading volume of $58 million. Every single sign, every single we were seeing, pointed to a spectacular, super bullish launch for XRP's price. But reality had very different plans. Okay, now we get to the real heart of the mystery. This is that moment where the story of a wildly successful launch collides head-on with the cold, hard reality of the price chart. This is where the plot really thickens. And here's the contradiction in black and white. On the one hand, you have the expectation. A massive institutional milestone, backed by millions of dollars in trading volume. And on the other hand, you have the reality, a painful price drop of 7% on the very same day. It was just wild to watch. And when you put actual numbers on it, the picture becomes even starker. XRP's price was sitting pretty at around $2.48 right before the launch, only to get knocked down to the 230 zone. It was a clear, measurable drop that left a lot of people just staring at their screens wondering what on earth just happened. So what went wrong? Well, the market detectives have rounded up a couple of prime suspects. Let's bring them in for questioning, shall we? Suspect number one is an old classic, a tale as old as time in the markets. Buy the rumor, sell the news. You see, in the weeks leading up to the ETF launch, savvy traders who were betting on the approval bought up tons of XRP, driving the price up. Then, the second that official news dropped, boom, they hit the sell button to lock in their profits, creating this huge wave of selling pressure that just swamped all the initial buyers. So you had that massive profit taking. But that was compounded by a second crucial factor, just plain bad timing. The entire crypto market was in a bit of a downturn that day, and that bigger bearish mood across the board probably dragged XRP down with it, no matter how good its own news was. And this all points to a really critical lesson, right? A huge, positive piece of news is just no guarantee of an immediate price pump. The markets are way more complex than that. There are so many different forces pulling and pushing at the same time. Okay, so if the short-term reaction was so bad, does that mean the ETF is just a failure? Well, not so fast. To really see the whole picture here, we have to zoom out and look way beyond that first day of trading. The best way to think about this ETF is as a bridge, a brand new, super strong, highly regulated bridge for institutional money. Before this, for a big pension fund or hedge fund to buy XRP, it was complicated. They had to deal with tricky custody and regulations. This ETF just wipes all that away. It lets them buy XRP as easily as they'd buy a share of stock. This bridge basically opens a door that for a lot of big money players was pretty much locked shut before. And here's the key. The real impact of this new gateway isn't about a one-day price pop. It is structural. It's about the long term. You got to think of its effect as a marathon, not a sprint. For instance, some analysts are suggesting that this new access could be what helps XRP push past major levels, maybe even towards that $3.50 mark down the line. All right, so with all of that on the table, the big question is, what now? What should we actually be watching to figure out where this is all going? Well, there are four key things to keep on your radar. First, and this is the big one, capital flows. Are big funds consistently putting money into this ETF over the next few weeks and months? That's the real test. Second, the technicals. You have to watch the charts. Does the price find a solid floor at key support levels, or does it keep bleeding? Third, what's the trend on this sell-off? Was this just a one-day thing, or is it the start of something bigger? And finally, you can never forget the overall market context. XRP doesn't live in a vacuum. What Bitcoin and the rest of the global economy are doing will always have a huge impact. I think when you step back, the big lesson from this whole episode is pretty clear. Making knee-jerk reactions to headlines is almost never a good idea. The real story isn't just the news flash itself. It's about understanding the deeper market dynamics, and more than anything, following the money. And so that leaves us with the final massive question. Is this ETF the real starting gun for mass institutional adoption of XRP, or was it all just a false alarm, a lot of noise that didn't really change the game? Honestly, the jury is still out, and you can bet we'll be watching very closely to see how this case unfolds.